I stole $4,000 from a bookstore. Make sure to subscribe to Ski Mask Stories on YouTube and hit that like button if you enjoy the video. This has to be one of the worst things I've ever done, especially since I believe that money would have been going back into the community for the less fortunate. The bookstore next to my library was run by volunteers. Anyone could volunteer to be the checkout clerk. And my mom had started doing it, so there were a couple times she had asked me to go with her. For context, I lived in a very high-class suburb with virtually no crime, so anyone could really be trusted around the type of money they were bringing in, as it was insubstantial. No one needed to steal anything where I lived, well, except me. And just for context, my job at the bookstore was just to take the cash for the books, give change, and at the end of the day put the cash into an envelope and put it into a lockbox, with the key for the lockbox being under the cash register. This bookstore was pretty well protected. You could only enter with a card that was kept behind the desk in the larger library, and you could only enter into the larger library through the smaller one. Well, one day, and to this day I have no real reason as to why, other than for the thrill, but I decided I wanted to rob that bookstore. So, at night, right before the library closed, I went into the bookstore with a broken phone, left it on one of the tables, waited for the store to close, then went into the library like 30 minutes later, telling them I had left my phone in the bookstore. I was only 12 years old at the time, so they probably thought nothing of it. A kid would not be capable of taking this much money, or so they thought. They let me get the card key, and I went into the bookstore. At that time there were no cameras because, as I said, there was never any crimes, although I wouldn't doubt if there are cameras in place there now. I took the key from under the register, opened the lockbox, and took both of the envelopes, and left. In the first envelope there was around $1,500 cash. I opened the second envelope, counted the money, and saw I made a little more than $2,500 in cash. Once I arrived home from the second robbery, I had no idea where to keep the cash, so I dug a hole behind my neighbor's backyard and buried the cash in a plastic bag, which honestly taught me budgeting way before I needed to. I have felt so much shame since that day that it lies there, my neighbor's yard, years later. Maybe one day I will build the courage to take the money out, but as it is now, that money lies where it was placed when I was 12 years old. I took a dump in the middle of a bus because of a dare. When I was about 16 or 17, me and my best friend were biking around one day on a Friday night and hanging out. Later that evening we went to Sonic and then went to an elementary school nearby, and later biked to the high school we went to, which was just down the road. Next to the high school, there was a middle school, and they always had a bus used for the middle school football team parked outside in the back. I told him that I had to use the bathroom real quick. We were near a creek. I was just going to go there. So he said, "You know what you should do? You should take a dump in the bus." Believe it or not, the bus door was open and the key to start it was still in the ignition. I kid you not. Obviously, we didn't take it for a joy ride, but he did take the key. Anyway, he said, "I bet you want." So I did. I went in the bus, went in the back middle section, and took a dump right in the middle aisle on the floor. I yelled that I also had to pee, and he said to go on a seat, so I did on the driver's seat. Yes, the driver's seat. We then biked home super fast. The following Monday in school before class, he told me how on his bus ride to school, he heard over the bus driver's CB radio that someone needed a cleanup crew on the middle school football bus, and he busted out laughing. That's the story of how I took a dump in the middle of an empty school bus because of a dare. I used to let people steal from Walmart self-checkout lines. The machines at Walmart had cameras and would beep if the AI saw something go into the bag without ringing it up, and I would just disable it and say, "Okay, all fixed," and walk away. To be honest, I felt that the pay at Walmart didn't pay me enough to argue and fight with the customers, so I just opted out. If someone said the price was cheaper out on the floor, I would just manually adjust the price for them, no questions. Most of the time people were honest, but a lot of the time people were stealing, and there wasn't a damn thing I could do about it. Now that I don't work there, I totally know all the ways to steal from self-checkouts. One clever way I saw was to have a companion have a problem at a self-checkout a few machines down. While the cashiers are helping them, people would put whatever they wanted to steal in the bags and don't scan them. Another way I saw was to use the scanning guns. People would load all their food in reusable shopping bags as they shop. Then they'd pull out a few cheaper items and scan them, then walk out, basically paying a little, but getting more. I realize the door people don't know what the codes are on the receipt because it's usually all hyphenated so badly nobody knows what's what. As long as people don't look suspicious and say bye, or have headphones, we can ignore them. A few times when I was put on door, I would just pretend to look really. I was told if it's not a bag, look for that item. But bulky items like brawny paper towels 12-pack was labeled BR-PAP T12, $12.99 on the receipt, and even if I didn't see it, I'd just let them go. I wasn't about to get stabbed for a $13 an hour job.